Anthony Melchiori, what a week.
Hey, how are you?
Hi.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality. Hey everybody, Glenn Housman here. Of course, I'm with the one and only the incredible Mr. Anthony Melchiori. Anthony, so good to see you today.
So what's new? Anything happened yesterday?
I don't know. I mean, we went off air yesterday. I got put into a coma. Now I'm out of here. Why? Did I miss anything yesterday, Anthony Melchiori? But before we get into that, let me just quickly say I want to thank bestbuy.com/hospitality for being a supporter of our show for the next couple of months. Remember, they got over 4,000 Geek Squad agents ready to help you with all sorts of IT solutions to make your property better. Not in the market for IT solutions? Well, believe it or not, they even got they've got room sanitizing solutions, patio furniture solutions, and a whole lot more than just TVs. Make sure to check them out at bestbuy.com/hospitality. All right, Anthony, you know, I'm always uncomfortable talking about politics, and it's very hard to ignore what happened yesterday. What are you feeling right now?
Tell me what you're feeling, and I'll tell you what I'm feeling. You go first.
I think what occurred yesterday was the single most disgraceful thing I've seen in my entire life.
Okay. I think it was a despicable act, but I think it's one of the touch points of our world, of our country, and I think we have to look at it that everything that happened, unfortunately, people got hurt. It was scary, but it proves to ourselves and it proves to the world that our Constitution isn't our Constitution is not something that is, a nice to have. It's not like the Constitution saying, well, this is what should happen, right? This is the Constitution and we have to follow the Constitution. So I think that that's what we learned yesterday. And I think in the long run, it's a great day for our country. I think we saw the vulnerabilities of what could happen if our Constitution just becomes a recommendation and not actual, the actual law of the land. And you see everyone on either side condemning what happened.
Yes, and thank goodness.
What I found, well, at that point, if you don't, what I found really fascinating and I think critically important, again, coming from a little bit of a military background, is we react quickly. So I think the Congress and the Senate reacting quickly was so important. If they would have done it today,
that's right,
it would have been a disaster.
That's right.
That we saw our elected official in that chamber literally within hours was amazing.
Yeah, and I want to give credit to the leadership in both houses of Congress for forging ahead and certifying the election results, ensuring that President-elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will be installed on January 20th. All right. Yeah, I really hope this is an inflection point for the United States. I hope that at this point we could start to move forward in more unity. Us here, we try so hard to be a beacon of love and light for all of you out there. And one of the things I love about this community, Anthony, is no matter what's been going on with the COVID, through political crises, I really have a great community of people here all coming together in what the true spirit of hospitality and being an American patriot is all about.
I want to talk about this for all day, but we're not going to do that.
No, because we've got an incredible guest today that we have.
But my point being is, I said something before we went off air yesterday, before I knew this was all going to happen, and I anticipated this going to be happening. You don't have all the Secretary of Defenses coming together, Republican, Democrat, a couple of days before, saying, "Hey, there's got to be a peaceful transition of power." If they didn't see something coming, that they didn't know something we didn't know. Right. And what I said yesterday before we went off air, I said, our Constitution is all you have to worry about. Our Constitution is strong, and our Constitution will get us through this regardless of what happens. And I think that you saw that yesterday. Yes. And again, our Constitution isn't a recommendation. It is, these are the laws of the land. And I think you saw that yesterday. So I think in retrospect, when you're looking at 100 years and you look back, I think you're going to see it as, I know it's going to be hard to hear, but one of the most I'll say significant. I won't say the word I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most significant days in our history. But I was excited to wake up this morning to a country that felt something that Venezuela felt,
Right.
Cuba felt, other countries around the world felt. I was excited that our country got a kick in the gut, and then immediately we said, oh, whoa, that is not who we are. We're going to come together. So it was, I think, why not us? Why not that happen in our country? We see it all over the world. Why not that happen in our country? That country, why? That's what I can't understand. When people, I'm shocked. I can't believe it. Like, of course I could believe it, because if you give any one person or any one segment too much power, that's what happens in our Constitution. Again, I say yes, I'll say it again. Youngest country, oldest Constitution for a reason. It stood up.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so I think that just about settles it. It's an issue that we really did need to address, but I want to try to be a lot more positive because we've got a great guest on today. We're going to be having on Dan Flannery. He's the SVP Managing Director of EDITION Hotels by Marriott. Before we get that, a little bit of breaking news. Our friendly competitors over at Hotel Business Magazine have been sold to Rubelman Capital. So that'll be interesting to see how that works out for those guys. I'm big supporters of their leadership over there. I really like Aaron Roleri and Christina Trouthwaite, and I wish you guys a lot of luck as you enter this new year, but not too much luck, because I still want to be number one in this category. Anthony, should we bring in our guest today?
Yes, let's bring in straight from the Capitol. No,
boom, Dan Flannery. Welcome to the show. He's, of course, SVP Managing Director of EDITION, which I just mentioned. Dan, sorry the roll of the dice was for you to come on such an awkward and weird day, but I'm so excited to talk about EDITION Hotels with you today.
No, thanks for having me on.
And let me say, I got to fully cop this one. I've never stayed in EDITION Hotels. I already feel the shame spiral, but what I've done to make sure I feel like I've stayed at an EDITION hotel is I've got myself the London property right here behind me. Absolutely stunning to look at. And of course, we're going to take a look at some of the more of the 11 open properties that you have in your system. Dan, how cool is it that you're running one of this brand out there?
No, it's the most exciting work I've done in my career. Really, it's been a labor of love since we started it back in 2008.
And how did you start your career with Marriott?
Actually, I started as a waiter and a busboy in the Gaithersburg Marriott back in 1981. So I kind of grew up through the Marriott system and became a general manager with them. Worked for Ritz-Carlton for about 7 years. And
I love that. Again, a poster story of somebody who started in the lowest ranks of hospitality and has made their way to the upper echelon of success. Right. And that's what we really try to talk a lot about here, Dan, is that there are so many pathways in the hospitality industry. And I really love being able to break down the notion that a hotel job is just a job in a hotel. So congratulations for
Dan, Glenn doesn't understand how hotels work because he said the lowest rung. You start at the highest rung and you wound up at the lowest rung. Because cleaning hotel rooms and taking care of guests is the most prestigious thing you can do in our industry.
Anthony, I'm sorry. Dan, sorry. I did not mean to use those words. I'm a little, as my grandmother would say, fabujina today. So, yes. Every job is equal in my opinion, but I just meant more in terms of growing your career to a place that you wanted to move it to. All right.
Absolutely.
All right.
When Anthony said that, I know he showed his colors as a former general manager. So
right. And I'm jealous of all you guys. I've never worked in a hotel before, so I always feel like the consummate insider. I always feel a little bit, Dan, like I'm a little, I'm somewhat of a poser, just pretending to be in the true spirit of hospitality, like you two guys. So, all right. So let's talk a little bit about the brand. What's going on with it right now? It's been a complicated year for you, but you're still in expansion mode, creating amazing properties in great cities around the world.
We are. Yeah, we really we signed the initial deal with Ian Schrager back in 2007, and I joined in 2008. And we wound up kind of opening our first couple of hotels in the kind of jaws of the Great Recession, which wasn't ideal. And then kind of Marriott regrouped, bought 3 properties on their own, London, New York, and Miami, and basically figured if they got those right, that it would really showcase the brand and things would take off, which is exactly what happened. So, it was little bit of slow growth at the beginning. Then 2018, we opened 4 hotels in 4 countries in 5 months and almost killed us.
So how do you go from being Marriott to working with a person like Ian Schrager, who is an entrepreneur, a leader, a renegade? He has a reputation as someone who just gets stuff done and doesn't really take, he doesn't suffer fools. So how is it working with someone and trying to put him in work with a corporation?
Yeah, so I get paid by Marriott. I work for Marriott, but I work, and my team does, out of Ian's office in New York City. So,
oh, cool.
they made the decision to really kind of embed us with his team so that he could direct the brand. And there was so many stories at the beginning, the odd couple. It was, Mr. Studio 54 and Mr. Marriott. And
it seems like strange bedfellows to me, Dan. Like if someone would have said what kind of partnership was going to happen in 2007, I would never think that one.
Yeah, but if you think about it, both sides respect what the other brings to the table, right? Marriott has muscle. They have 150 million rewards members in Bonvoy. They've got a retail website that's second only to Amazon in normal times in retail sales, a global sales force around the world. So all that muscle and power. And what Ian brings is, as you mentioned, Anthony, that really entrepreneurial approach. A very, very different aesthetic and kind of eye for design, but he's also involved in marketing and branding and IP and F&B concepts and all those things. And you're right, he moves at 100 miles an hour.
That's what I knew. That year was the year I knew Marriott was going to be okay and stay up with what's happening 2020 or 18, 17. I'll tell you why, because that was the year he announced with Ian Schrager, but also I worked for Nickelodeon at the time. And that was also the same year, or around the same time, that Mr. Marriott announced that he was working with SpongeBob. So within the same year, there's a picture of Ian and Mr. Marriott and a picture of Mr. Marriott and SpongeBob. And I thought that was hysterical.
Do you think Ian Schrager worries about not being as big of a celebrity as SpongeBob?
We all do.
But I think you're right, Anthony, because quite frankly, that move, I think, really started to the DNA of Ian Schrager's group, and the DNA of EDITION started, I think, to move its way into other areas of the Marriott family of brands. And it really seems to me that a lot of the other brands have taken a cue to become more cosmopolitan and modern and really be able to reflect changes that were taking place in design and society. So even though you're working on a specific brand, EDITION in this case, I think that influence is really spread across the entire portfolio in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think so. It's just the idea that boutique hotels at the time were kind of trendy. Would it last? Would it be a flash in the pan? Mr. Marriott would tell you that he was kind of hesitant to get into the space because he didn't know whether it would last. But really, what we're doing, what Ian's doing, is timeless design that is more reflective of the way people live now. And I think more people are interested in or less interested in more traditional, stuffy luxury, and still want luxury, but they want a much different kind of more modern aesthetic.
Right. And I hate when people say boutique. I remember when Ian Schrager invented the word boutique. And he invented, Morgan, when the first hotel he had in New York was Morgan. Everybody boutique, boutique, boutique. I've been to plenty of big hotels that I felt a boutique. Like if you go to, say the Wynn in New York, in Vegas.
I was just thinking Encore.
I feel like that's a boutique hotel. I really do. Yeah. So to me, it's not the size, it's the feeling, and it's the people behind it. And it really, after Mr. Marriott got involved with Ian and then SpongeBob and all those, it's like other people tried to be something, whereas Mr. Marriott followed the DNA of the customer. And I think that's what Marriott does better than anyone, is that you follow the DNA of the customer.
Yeah, and if you have 30 brands, they better be very distinctively different, right? And you really better stay in your lane. It's a funny story. I'll get the exact quote wrong, but Ian's, if you've seen the documentary that he did on Studio 54, his original partner and his best friend, Steve Rubel, was the one that coined the phrase boutique hotel. Somebody asked him in an interview when they got into the hotel business, how was what you're doing different than the big brands? And he said, look, they are trying to be all things to all people like a department store, and we're trying to have a very specific point of view like a boutique. And I think the reason that it's shifted from boutique to lifestyle is just to that point. People thought boutique meant small, but he did an 860 room hotel at Hudson 20 years ago. So
yeah, it's another thing that was weird is you and I growing up in this industry, probably about the same age, is like we didn't get lifestyle hotels. Like you worked at a Marriott and you worked at a Hilton or you worked at this. It's like, Anthony, I remember talking to executive search firms. You're not a lifestyle guy. I was like, I don't know what the hell that means. So when these big companies started taking over these lifestyle brands and these 5-star hotels, you saw a guy that ran a small Marriott or a big Marriott could run a St. Regis, could run a Schrager, could run any hotel. We are entrepreneurs and we're business people. And I think one of the things that I've got from the brands getting involved in these kind of hotels, it gave guys like you and gave guys like me an opportunity to run these kind of hotels.
Yeah, and what I liked about it, I grew up on the restaurant and bar side of the business. That's all I did for the first 15 years of my career. And I think we saw the hotel industry, particularly in the United States, probably more in the U.S. than international, but gravitate away from the restaurant and bar business because it changes too fast. It's low margin, and so they kind of marginalize that business in many cases. And in the case of lifestyle hotels, you're really largely getting your personality and the vibe in your hotel based on what you do in restaurant and bars. So it's a strategic priority. It's something that's really important, and it's something that Ian puts a lot of focus on.
Absolutely.
So, Anthony?
No, absolutely. Listen, Ian Schrager came synonymous with cool. Like it's like you say Ian Schrager and the Mondrian, you're gonna, the Sky Bar. I remember my friend Vince Piro ran the Sky Bar in California. And Vince is Italian guy from I think Jersey, and he's even smaller than me. And he's running the Mondrian Sky Bar when it was the hottest bar in the country. And I remember going there, and you see this little guy from the East Coast, and I'm like it doesn't fit, bro. Like you don't fit in the Sky Lounge. But I remember going there, and as soon as you have a drink and you're in the Sky Lounge, it was really for everyone. And you felt cool, and so he made cool.
Yeah, that was a great venue, Sky Bar.
Now I wish I could have gone there. All right, so here, a great move by Marriott to have Dan. Yes, absolutely great to hear that you think he's a great hotelier. Also, another compliment coming your way. You're very modest. Your experience from Marriott to Morgan Hotels to Edition is second to none. You are the hotel sommelier. So,
are you really? No, that's fascinating to me. To me, like when I meet somebody that was like a ballerina and the person says, well, I was a ballerina for 20 years, like it fascinates me. Same thing with being a sommelier. The people in this business that are like excite me. How, why, and where?
Yeah, no, I'm not a sommelier.
No, he says a hotel sommelier. So no, Dan, I would like to know which edition would pair nicely with me. That's kind of like that's like kind of.
I fell for it.
Depends on which one I'm trying to plug right now. Maybe Tokyo, since
I was going to say, how about Tokyo, a place that I was hoping to go in the summer of 2020, but dang, coronavirus made it impossible for me to take my family there. We have hopes that we will be able to get there this particular summer to Tokyo and to other places in Japan. I promised my kids I would take them to Osaka and see the new Super Mario World at Universal Studios. But let's bring up a picture of the Tokyo property so we could, we could fell about how gorgeous that one looks.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a view from, there's a restaurant there called the Jade Room. And there's this, Ian calls this the Garden Terrace off of Jade Room. So this is a restaurant on the 31st floor that overlooks Tokyo Tower. And our chef partner here is Tom Akins, who I think now is still the youngest chef from London ever to win a Michelin star.
Wow.
That's part of Jade Room also.
That is absolutely stunning. And again, not a design that you would basically look at and go, that's a Schrager design. And what I love is Schrager has moved on from Ian Schrager's design and evolved. And there's so many other hotels and boutiques still doing Ian Schrager hotels when he's not doing them anymore. He's changing, he's developing, and this is gorgeous.
I love that, Dave. Yeah, this is a great picture. I love how you the jade color is throughout, both with man-made products and the organic parts that are in there as well. What a absolutely gorgeous look. Now, all those drinks are green back there. Is that all like, one, is it all single cocktail or is it pretend drinks? What's going on over there?
No, that's part of the back bar styling there.
That's Photoshop?
No.
No, it's probably really there. Yeah. Awesome. That's absolutely beautiful.
When people don't appreciate this process, but we couldn't get into Tokyo, so it's the first opening we did virtually. We directed it. It's 13-hour time difference, so we were up all night, kind of directing the training, broadcasting from our Paradise Club in Times Square.
Wow.
And Ian's team was directing the styling overnight every night for 5 weeks in that project. And I was sharing this with one of our owners one night on a Sunday after 4 weeks of styling already. The notes from that one night that he gave them of things that he wanted changed and altered and edited, I think was 76 items in the list. So just the level of rigor and focus and detail, people who have never been able to get close enough to see him work would really appreciate how much goes into it with them.
You know what's great? Let's just stay on this picture for a second, or this picture. Stay on that for either one. Stay. What I love about this design is the reason there were 76 changes, the reason there's so much attention to detail, because it doesn't look like there's that much detail. It doesn't look like it's that complicated. It looks pretty easy. And the most beautiful design, the simplest design in the world, is the one that's the most complicated.
Right.
Right, because it really looks, Dan, from this photograph, that a lot of effort in the room design was taken away about stripping away a lot of the stuff that we commonly expect to have put into a hotel and really rethinking what is essential and what can be eliminated in order to create more of a minimalist feel, in my opinion, that still feels warm and comfortable.
And if you just go back to that picture, if you just look at the leg of the desk, right? Talk about detail, talk about the things that go through Ian's head. I've met Ian once or twice, and I can tell you no detail escapes him. But if you look at the desk, look at how that angle of that what's the word I'm looking, stool is behind the desk. It's like onto the wall. So the leg, that's the word I'm looking for. The leg of the desk, it's not at the corner. It's, right there.
Thanks, Dave.
It's flush to the wall. It's angled to the wall. Now, what does that do for the eye? What does that do for your spacing? That one little detail changes so much.
Yeah, and that carries over to everything that he does. I mean, every restaurant name, logo, photograph, even the Anthony, this, the OS&E, the operating supplies and equipment in a typical hotel is probably 3,000 to 4,000 items that you need to buy for a hotel. I gave him a list early on and said, highlight the ones that you want to personally approve, thinking he'd say, well, use your standard Ritz-Carlton pillow and mattress and iron and ironing board, all those things. And I'll never forget it. He highlighted about 860 items on the list that he wanted to personally approve what the spec was. So, it's been a lot of work over the years to get every single detail like that exactly where we want it.
And that's so important. And it keeps you guys honest, right? It keeps your brand honest. And if anyone thinks they love the hotel business, and Dan, you could appreciate this. If anyone thinks they love the hotel business, take an OS&E supply list, okay, and try to open the hotel. Just all you have to do is focus on the OS&E part of it, and you're in charge of it. Then after you're done with that, tell me if you love the hotel business.
Right. or do an opening for 2 weeks and then see whether you ever want to come back and come back for more.
Well, yeah, most general managers, right? Was it 6 weeks after they open, they disappear, they vanish, they crystallize. The opening a hotel is very, very interesting. The OS&E, I remember when we were doing, I think it was the Intercontinental in Times Square. I was working for Tishman. I was an asset manager. And we had to do the OS&E list for that. And I've never done a list that big for such a big hotel. And I just remember, some days just being in pain.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for a 500-room hotel, it would, fill a big-size ballroom when you bring all that stuff in.
Yeah.
So how does a list like that come together, guys? I mean, because there's so many items. How do you know you've got everything, or you don't have too much? How does that work? Because I could see very easily if you have a list of hundreds and hundreds of things, oops, somebody forgot to buy the X really important item.
Yeah, it's it's quite a process. You need people who are experienced in it, and you have to determine how many pars of linen do you need, and how many pillows do you need, and how many rollaway beds. And then you have engineering tools and pots and pans and trash cans and just, a lot of things. Generally, you leave, Glenn, an allowance at the end for the things that you forgot that you have to go scramble and put together at the last minute.
Right. And then you run out of the hotel in the middle of Times Square and you go buy salt and pepper shakers for the tables.
Or just go to a hotel down the street and go, hey, look there.
No, but to Dan's point, it's you have to have every person that I literally try to get everybody, all line employees, managers, supervisors, to look at the list, because some things they'll put on the list that we say no to, but it's really important, especially if you don't have a brand, especially if you're an independent hotel. It's really important to listen to the people that actually run the place.
Yeah, and it's one thing to have a standard for something, but then you open we opened 2 hotels in China in between 2016 and 2018, and one in Bodrum, Turkey, one in Barcelona. We're opening one in Reykjavik. And, you can't necessarily get your specifications in those countries. So you have to then scramble to say, okay, what's a comparable spec? How do we get it approved? And keep that level of rigor and control on the process.
So you mentioned something that really inspires me about this business is, you're a young kid coming up in this business, wanting to be a successful hotel business. And then you're going to Tokyo, and then you're taking, you can't go to Tokyo. So you're doing 15-hour days. You're doing overnights. You're doing all kinds of things. All parts of the world. You're learning about cultures. You're learning about the way people do business in parts of the world. Is that one of the most fascinating part of your job?
Yeah, it is amazing. It's really trying to adapt your brand and protect it when you go into a different location. And there's this kind of gravitational pull anywhere you go. Even if you go in the US, you go to San Francisco, you'll hear, right, well, San Francisco's different, you have to do this, or London's different, or this is different. If you believe in your idea, no matter what it is, if it's a McDonald's, you're not going to say, well, we're in the Middle East and let's not do hamburgers and French fries. If you believe in your idea, you stick to your idea, and the only adaptations you make is if there's something that's really going to be culturally offensive. And
so how do you actually figure that out? Because, as an American, I never lived overseas. I don't necessarily know the nuances of culture. How do I make sure I don't make a mistake if I'm building a hotel in China and don't realize the number 4 is symbolic of death, where the number of 8 is one of luck? How do you avoid those kind of potential pitfalls?
Yeah, a couple of ways. One, we have, as I mentioned, Marriott has resources around the world, right? So we can plug in, and as Anthony knows, if you've been around this business, you can make 2 or 3 phone calls and meet somebody, get connected with somebody in the business that knows that part of the world. And so, really doing your homework in that regard. We'll also hire cultural advisors early on, often who are history professors in a particular country, to say, tell us, we've got a brand that's largely based on Western values. And we're coming to, in this case, Bodrum, Turkey. Where's the potential rub where things might be, different, or we might want to be sensitive to, how the brand's received there.
Yeah, and I always say there's always a job in the hotel business for whatever you do. So if you're a history professor, we have a job for you in the hotel business. And,
right.
And cool. Listen, the one thing everybody knows about Marriott, when one of my clients or someone asks me for advice for a brand, this is what I say about Marriott. I say, Marriott knows who they are. Understand, going into Marriott, they know who they are. You're not going to tell them who they are. And I think that to what you just said, is you go into a certain place outside of being culturally inappropriate, you are who you are. And that's what made Marriott successful.
Yeah, I think so. It's also, the reason that people like me have stayed with the company so long is that when you have the level of growth, when I joined back in 1981, I think we had just over 100 hotels and one brand. There wasn't Courtyard or Residence Inn, or Ritz-Carlton, any of those. And, that growth has created opportunities. If you get into the business and you do a great job, but you're an independent that has 2 hotels, you have to wait for your boss to, quit, get fired, or die before you have an opportunity to get promoted.
Going, on tangent for a second, how important, because the Marriott Marquis was probably thought of in the late 70s and started developing in the early 80s, and then opened probably in 86 or 87.
85, I think.
Yeah. 85. How important was that one hotel, the Marriott Marquis in Times Square, to the overall growth of Marriott?
It was a big deal. Times Square was, a lot of people thought that was a mistake at the time. I think it cost...
Because it could have been a mistake at the time. It was like the porn center of the world, and drugs and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. But, I think it wound up costing, Mr. Marriott tells a story in his book about, the day that they had to decide whether they, move forward on the financing. I think it wound up costing twice as much as they thought it would cost to get it open. But, it's been a big success. And I think it gets credited for helping kind of revitalize Times Square.
Oh, 100%. It was the leader.
I'll go beyond that, revitalizing the entire city, Dan, because that was very symbolic of it can happen. We can make this incredible comeback and revitalize these places that used to be so meaningful, but have slipped into disrepair in the 70s.
Yeah. I worked there for 5 years as the assistant food and beverage director for Mike Stengel, who you guys did the interview with.
Yeah. Mike Stengel, who's that?
Yeah. It looks like Mike Stengel is shutting you down, Anthony. He's offended just hearing that joke.
For some reason, my camera keeps blinking out. So just keep me in the show and I'll keep going on. But
that's okay. Our audio listeners won't have an issue with that. If you're not subscribed to the audio podcast, this is the perfect time to go ahead and do that. Go check the Checking In with Anthony and Glenn feed over at iTunes or anywhere you get your podcast. Sorry, Anthony.
I worked at the DoubleTree in Times Square, which is where the Embassy Suites in Times Square, which is now DoubleTree. And we were one of the other big hotels that opened up when everybody thought we were crazy. And I remember the Marriott Marquis and how important it was to that entire area. I mean, it's like when I'm in your comp set, if I'm running a hotel in that comp set, I always say, don't look at Marriott Marquis. And they say, why? I say, it's like trying to play, basketball against Michael Jordan. Just don't do it.
Yeah. That was that hotel ran occupancies in the high 90s annually on a 2,000 room hotel.
On January 4th, it ran 98%. When the city was 2%, you guys ran 98%. Yeah,
and more recently, and a lot of times, over $500 a night, which is incredible.
And, over $100 million a year in food and beverage revenue. I mean, the F&B venues there never stopped. Never.
So what's the biggest? So what is the biggest challenge right now to holding on to the brand and making sure that it develops the way you guys are planning? Like, what is your biggest challenge right now?
Yeah, great question. I think for the hotels that we have that are reopening and the ones that are open already, they are operating in very, very difficult economic climates. You have owners that are losing a lot of money. And, so we're really trying to jump through hoops to keep costs down for them.
Right.
And, it's difficult to get any kind of investment in the physical product. So, we're trying to maintain the product as best we can through these difficult times, knowing that every time we've gone through a cycle like this, it comes back, better than ever. I mean, every time.
Right. And I'm glad that you have that attitude. But
we've got to look over the hill a little bit. But we've got to make sure that the 11 that are open and reopen are, don't come off the rails in any way. And then we have to make sure the next 7 that are coming are really, really strong openings.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you a question that's going to be a little difficult and challenging to answer, but I think it's really the pivotal point of our industry. The owners are tired. The owners, a lot of them are broke, and they're having some serious financial challenges. The brands left the ownership part of the business years ago. How do you relate to that? Hello, Mike Stengel. How do you relate to, see, he jumped in because he's saying, don't ask that question. But how do you,
my lawyer,
because a lot of owners are irritated and pissed off because they're feeling some brands, I'm not saying Marriott at all, but that some brands just don't understand.
Yeah, look, they are looking to us to help get them through this, but most of them are taking a long-term view, and they realize that, every time, whether it's, came to New York in 91, it was during the Gulf War recession. I was there during 9/11, 2001. So you just take New York City as an example. After the Great Recession, every time they come back, oftentimes the deeper the recession, the stronger the recovery is. And some of that is just because of the impact on supply and demand. So I think when New York City comes back, people will return, to that city. You're going to see big pushes for tourism and support Broadway. And if that is an environment that there's much fewer restaurants and bars and hotels open, then a lot of them believe that there'll be a bright future there. It's just a matter of when that is.
I completely agree with you. But Dan, right now it's a struggle of trying to balance the needs of ownership while still maintaining the right type of property to keep guests engaged and happy. It's a very fine line, I would guess, that you need to balance. What have you learned about dangling on that precipice in these last 8-9 months?
Yeah, I think we've learned that guests are generally pretty understanding of the condition that we're in right now.
Right.
They're less tolerant when it looks like business is returning. If the
Right.
lobby's busy and it seems like business is returning, they're going to be less tolerant about why you don't have normal operating standards in place. And it's a difficult time to be a GM because many of the hotels are much busier than they anticipated because of travel patterns changing. Resort hotels, Bodrum, Turkey, and Sanya, China, both in countries that large parts of 2020, the citizens of those countries couldn't leave the country. Those hotels exceeded budget. Sometimes Sanya was doing 2 or 3 times their GOP budget last year. So really, really strange dynamics. Then you have urban hotels that are really struggling until there's a vaccine and things return. So different types of services. There's no way we can reopen our nightclubs until there's a vaccine that's
to go back to something you said, it's like very challenging for general managers, and it is, and that's obvious, and I'm not going to dispute that. But the reason you, Mike, and other people in the industry have been unbelievably successful is not your reputation and your career wasn't built when we had 10 years of growth. Your reputation was built when 9/11 happened, when the pandemic happened.
Right.
How do you make things happen? And so to me, these general managers that are challenged right now, this is where you get promoted. This is where you make your bones. This is where you make your career.
Yeah. And I think hotels that were in tough shape or were not a good physical product going into this will probably not survive. The ones that were maintained and well run, you can play defense for a little while getting through this, but eventually, we've got to play offense and defense, right? You have to focus on the top line, getting your business back, and make sure you maintain your reputation.
This teaches general managers how to really be general managers, how to be a business person and an entrepreneur. Whether you have Marriott with you or you don't have Marriott, this is going to challenge anyone, and I really believe that the great general managers are going to not only survive, but they're going to just do better and better. And the people who are just kind of in the middle and were complaining when things weren't good, and they always had to complain about whoever, they're gone. They're not even going to last to the vaccine. They're already out of the business.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that this will separate the great GMs from that is still the most important job in the industry, I think, and this will separate the real top performers from the ones that can't deal with adversity.
Yeah,
we got one question here. Any sense of when the industry will go on offense? I guess instead of playing defense now.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, this has taken longer than I thought. I don't know if anybody
taken longer than everyone thought.
But I think hopefully if we get out of winter and the vaccine starts to take hold here, I think when you start to see it turn, we've seen this in countries that have seen some level of recovery, that people are dying to get out and go celebrate the graduation that they missed, or weddings or family reunions, or any of those things that people go to travel to do.
Do a quick shout out to New Zealand, because they are COVID free and are back to normal under every single circumstance. Anthony?
Yeah, I was just saying in the beginning of this, when people say how long, whatever, and I don't like giving dates. I don't. I said I have no idea. I'm not a doctor. I'm not God. But I said stamina, and that was the word that Glenn's heard me say 1,000 times. Stamina, 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 stamina. And the other day when I was feeling a little weak, I just said to myself, I said, stamina, bro. You said stamina, 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 stamina. And that's what's going to get us through. If you're looking for the finish line, you're going to be exhausted before you get there.
Right. Yeah. Stamina. I think resiliency, you have to react quickly too. That we opened Miami, and the occupancy quickly exceeded what we were staffed for, right? Which is a good problem to have, but it's still a problem, right? It's a difficult environment to operate. Then all of a sudden the infection rates dropped or increased in Florida and Dade County. And all of a sudden occupancy levels drop dramatically, and you have to react the other way. And now business is starting to recover. They're, running over 50% occupancy. So you really have to be flexible and be able to, turn on a dime in this kind of,
and it's also our responsibility, especially a big brand like you have so many liabilities, that even if you're 50, 60, 70%, people want to be there, you have to triple down on safety. I mean, you just really have to be OCD on safety, because the governor's allowing you to keep the hotel open. the guests are saying, I want the hotel open. The employees say, I want a job. But at the end of the day, you're a conductor in a petri dish. I mean, it's a really dangerous environment to work in.
Right. Yeah. The place has to be pure, immaculate in every way to have confidence. But people also need to see a very visible sign of cleaning protocols and that you're taking, their health and safety seriously.
Yeah, I was at a ski resort the other day, and there was a guy in the middle of the line as people were coming to go up on the lift, and he was standing there, and he was just doing this, and you can tell he was smiling with his eyes, and he was just like, in other words, put your mask on, because if you're on a hill and you're flying down, maybe you pull your mask down so you can breathe. And he was doing it with his eyes or whatever, and you wouldn't even know he was there outside if he was just very present. Every single person with a smile, and everybody had their mask on. And again, you have to be really, really diligent. And I felt safe, and I'd go back.
Yeah, all right. We got, I want to show some more pictures, particularly of the London property that I'm sitting at, but we did have one question that I'm having a little hard time finding. If you look at the floors here, it's like either wood floors or LVT floors. One of the questions was, how do you folks, there we go. This minimal carpet approach standard for addition. What about the soundproofing between floors? Because I've seen some great innovations in some rubber that might go underneath the flooring in order to keep the clip clopping missing. What's your policy on the LVT floors? Because I think it looks so much better than carpet.
Yeah, it's also it's a little more expensive. We use real wood, and
Awesome.
it's something that in the long term is better because you're not replacing carpet every 4, 5, 6 years. But you do have to make sure that it's installed right. You have the right installation, not only floor to floor, but room to room in between.
Now, if Ian Schrager wasn't involved in this project or in Element, would you be using wood floors? Honest answer.
I think so. I don't. It's a good question. You see more brands moving to that now, but probably more often fake wood than real.
Right. But that's kind of why I assumed, Dan, that you're going the LVT way, although I suspected it possibly could have been wood floors. But I think, Anthony, you really hit a great point right there, that you need somebody that's going to continually push what you can do upward, never settle for what's already been done before or what's a standard. And the whole notion of rethinking everything from the ground up is something that Schrager's gone on to do with Public, for example.
If I was an owner of one of those properties and I was sitting in a meeting with you guys and I said, hey, why would LVT, whatever, I would, because of his brand, because of Ian Schrager, that's why I asked the question. It's of course you have to. If you're going to ask Ian Schrager to come to the table, then you've got to give into that, because that's what made Ian. Those points, those moments. It's like when I walked into the Hudson Hotel, we looked at that hotel when I was with a company in the city, and I remember walking through with the ownership, and we all said to ourselves, because we were going to take it and we were going to do it, we were going to renovate it. And I remember the owner saying, the rooms are too small, you can't make money here. And when you go into the Hudson, you have to go outside the room to change your mind. That's how small the rooms are. But one of the things when I finally went there, and we're hotel geeks, so as soon as the hotel opens in the city, we run. And I remember going up the escalator. And as soon as you go up the escalator, there's two chairs. There were plastic chairs. And I sat in the chair immediately and just went, oh, wow. I remember saying, this is different. This is a new standard. And because the rooms are so small, he made at that point, maybe a 15-year hotel guy go, wow. And that's
he doesn't only design and build hotels. He creates brands, right? Studio 54 was a brand, Morgan's, Royalton, Delano, St. Martin's Lane. They were all individual brands there. And one of the things that he said that was very meaningful to us at the beginning of Edition is that when you create a brand, it has to stand for something, right? You have to think very deeply about what you stand for. And the first thing he did was talk about, what are the core values, which is almost the foundation of the house. And it didn't matter how many there were, but eventually there was 4 of those. And one of those is authenticity. And what he means by, and they each have meaning, right? So authenticity in design means that really sophisticated travelers will know the difference between real wood and fake wood. They'll know the difference between real flowers and fake flowers. So,
and they'll care about it.
Yeah.
So what are the other three tenets of the brand?
It's passion, authenticity, sophistication, and enchantment. And
I love that, because to me, that gives you the creative freedom to do something completely different with design at each property while still retaining the core values of the brand, which when customers come, they feel. Right, Dan?
Right. Yeah. And it's not just design, it's vocabulary, it's names of restaurants. You look at the Tokyo project, it's Jade Room, right? We're not doing a bar in Tokyo in Waikiki called King Kamehameha's Tiki Bar, right? So
Right.
everything is simplicity.
Although they do have great drinks over there, I got to tell
you. You said words and you the right ones, and you said the word enchantment. Is that the word you use, enchantment?
Yes,
how do you bring enchantment to life? How do you define enchantment?
It's a reaction that you get, right? So he and Ian would say, I hate when I'm trying to speak for him. It's we should get him on the show.
Yes, we should. If you could get that to happen for us, we'd appreciate it.
But it's really the reaction that you get from people. He's not stopping with the design, music programming, the scent, the lighting levels, the landscape, the uniforms, any of the elements that create that experience until it's going to stop you in your tracks and get a reaction. We couldn't get into Tokyo for the press event, so he did a press conference overnight, virtually, online, and then they took the press tours without us around the hotel. And the owner, Date-san from Mori Trust, she sent an email to us afterwards and said, in two of the venues, I think it was Jade Room and there's this gold bar on the street level that we're not opening yet, but she said when the press walked into those venues, in one of them they gasped. She just heard a gasp.
Wonderful. And
in the second one, they burst into applause.
Wow.
So that's the goal, right? Is to get that kind of reaction. That's enchanting, right?
Especially in that culture when they're used to that sophistication, that design, that minimalist, that they know it. They know when they see something that's special, and that's interesting.
Right. Yeah, it's beyond just, is it an Instagram moment and are people, taking pictures of it? Is he says it should lift your spirits. The space should make you feel better, and you don't know why, but elicit that kind of reaction.
Yeah, my favorite places to have a drink or to eat, I never know why I like them. I just know I like them.
Right.
All right. So let's take a look at some of those Instagram moments. Dave, let's bring up the London property. And while you're doing that, Steve asked, does Element strive to induce enchantment to the Western traveler, or are you more interested in the appeal of the local in-country clientele? And look at this image.
First of all, it's Edition, not Element. So.
Sorry. I don't know why I said Element.
No, he wrote Element.
Yeah, sorry.
It's really both. When you have a Western brand and when you have an infrastructure like Marriott, about 55% of our business in this hotel in London is outbound business from the U.S. Right. So the U.S. is such a source of travel. Barcelona is 65% U.S. But it's different. So you have the rooms business, but you also have food and beverage. And on the restaurant and bar side, we're really trying to hit the mark with locals, right? If you really do something that is authentic, to use that word again, and appeals to locals, that the hotel guests and travelers that are coming in will follow.
I haven't seen paneling that looks good since 1973. That's amazing, those wood walls.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. If you go back to
all you need is the shag carpet, right, Anthony?
Right. If you go back to the lobby, Dave, and show the lobby picture. Okay. The other one, the one you just had. Yeah. What I loved about that is it's not the biggest, entrance, but that painting, and I don't know if that painting is actually on the wall or it's just, I don't know if it's superimposed, but just that color brings out and just changes the entire environment of that lobby. And it's just, and then if you go back to the other picture of the big lobby, it's simple. It's somehow looks like it's been there forever, but it looks brand new. And what is the chandelier or thing hanging from the ceiling? What is that?
That orb is a piece of artwork. So, very interesting kind of contemporary touch in a historic building.
I thought it was the egg from Alien, so I'm glad to hear.
No, and what's interesting about it, it doesn't dominate. Somehow, some way, this big, really intrusive piece of art does not intrude. It's fascinating what design does. I don't know how they do it. Like, how do you get this thing that's the size of a building in the middle of a lobby and it doesn't intrude in the lobby? It's crazy.
And this hotel also has on the other side of this, behind this, you don't have that picture, but there's a restaurant there called Berner's Tavern that is, Marriott now has over 7,500 hotels. I think it's the third highest grossing restaurant in the system.
Wow.
With our chef partner, Jason Atherton, who, it's been a big hit since it opened. This hotel opened in 2013.
Wow. So, Dan, before we went on air, I was telling you about my passion for adaptive reuse hotels. This obviously looks like it's one of those. What does taking an existing structure and transforming it into a hotel do for you and your ability to better reflect the culture and character and historical nature of the neighborhood you're within?
Well, we do both. So, what you just saw with Tokyo was kind of knocking a building down to the ground and rebuilding, brand new construction. The West Hollywood is beautiful. That I don't know if you have any pictures of that, but that was a ground up construction as well. I think when you take these historic buildings that are that you can't touch the exterior, they can be much harder to do. But the character in those buildings, as you've seen with London, is to me is really, really unique. You've got to have a fine touch with it to
Right.
make some of the things that Anthony, you talked about, the artwork work in a historic building, but that'll be Madrid, Milan, Rome. Some of the projects we have coming up will be in the historic buildings like that.
So I got something just popped in my mind, and so it popped out of my mouth like it usually does. How do you take 30 brands and you have this big portfolio, obviously, of guests that keep coming back to the Marriott, but how do you take those people within the program and know which guest would like an element or would like an addition, or like do you break it down to that level, or you're like, okay, they usually travel to this area, they travel that area, but how can you say, let's break it down to the point where we can take this 5% of our clientele and we know they're going to love this. We know they're going to love this brand, and we're going to push them to this brand. How do you do that?
We thought we would have to do more of that when we started the brand because Edition was so different for Marriott. And we wondered whether, with all those Marriott Rewards members at the time before Bonvoy, if they would come in and say, well, this doesn't feel like a Marriott, it's not for me, or I don't feel like I fit here. And
it does feel like the former Starwood company, though, in some way.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, they had some different approaches to some of their brands.
Yeah, I mean it more in terms of what would appeal to that particular subset of clientele.
Yeah, and what we found is people self-select, right? There's people so much shop online now that look at photography, they'll read reviews. That very rarely do we hear of anyone who checked in and said, "This isn't what I thought. I don't feel like I fit here." And say, I want to move to a different brand. So I think that tends to take care of itself.
And now, isn't it where it's almost like, when you open up a bag of M&Ms and you have all these different colors, Marriott went from this is Marriott. We all knew what Marriott was, right? But now Marriott is almost on the other end of that. And it's like, hey, I don't know what Marriott's going to be. I have so many brands to choose from. You know what? I haven't heard about that brand. Let me go choose that brand. So you literally, in a very short period of time, and in business, 10 years, 15 years, a short period of time, really change that dynamic and that mindset. I don't think of Marriott, and I'll be perfectly honest with you, early in my career, I didn't think of Marriott at all because I felt it was very traditional. And now I really get excited by looking at the Marriott brands because I haven't tasted that before. I haven't tasted that before. I haven't tried that before. Let me go. And so it's fascinating what you guys have been able to create. And also what's fascinating to me is a lot of the people in Marriott have been in Marriott as long as I've been in the business and still able to be creative and innovative. And that typically doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think it happens a lot more in Marriott. You see Marriott, when you interviewed Mike, I think he had just hit his 40th anniversary with the company. So
right.
It's there's a lot of loyalty to the company. It's a great company to work for. And, the growth just has created opportunities for, I used to think my story was unique, kind of starting as a waiter and becoming a GM and beyond. And then I realized that it's pretty common in our business. There's so many people that started as banquet waiters and lifeguards and, that just grew up and learned the business in the company and benefited from it.
Excellent. We've got some pictures of West Hollywood that we'll bring up in just a second, David. But before we do that, Dan, I'm curious. You know, with so many brands in the portfolio, 6 of which are in the luxury category: Beyond Edition, Ritz-Carlton, the Luxury Collection, St. Regis, W Hotels, JW Marriott. How do you make sure that none of them cross over to what the other brands are trying to be?
You know, they're all I focus on. You know, I wake up and go to sleep thinking about Edition, right? So it's not my job to focus on the other brands. You know, we do try to make sure there are people on the Marriott brand team who are making sure that, you know, the brands are staying distinctive, staying in their lane. You know, there's too much. People see a good idea in this business, they want to kind of pull it into a different brand. So it takes a little bit of discipline to make sure that it doesn't bleed over in that respect. And some of it's not just about the, you know, we're talking a lot about the product. A lot of our business is about how you execute service, how you train staff, what your service standards are, and how your employees behave. And that, a lot of that comes back to what kind of culture you create and how you train.
So Dan, I need an honest answer to this question. You know, Mike Stengel's with Marriott for 4 years. He was on our show and he sent me a text saying, I hit my pinnacle. I'm going to retire now because I was on your guys' show. So is that what's going to happen, Dan? You hit the pinnacle and you're going to retire now?
No, not yet. I have a few years left to go.
And that was just a joke.
I have a few hotels to open.
I don't know. This would, if it was me in your position, I'd say this is a career high moment. But what do I know? All right, let's bring up those pictures, Dave, if you don't mind. Let's take a look at West Hollywood coming up right about now, Dave. There we go. Boom. Wow.
It's the lobby bar in West Hollywood. We opened this hotel in November of 2019.
Wow.
So we had a couple of months really off to a great start, only 3 months in, and we had to shut it down when COVID hit.
And the people that don't know West Hollywood's a great little area. How far are you from London, the London hotel?
We're probably a 5-minute walk. We're right on the corner. We're up the hill. So we're on the downhill side of Sunset Boulevard and just right on the border of Beverly Hills.
Wow, that pool is spectacular. I really want to swim laps in this pool and the one in Tokyo. They are amazing.
And that's the roof bar there at the end of it that overlooks downtown.
Wow, that's really beautiful as well. What kind of flooring are we looking at there, Dan?
That is the tile floor there. So we didn't do wood there. We did a tile similar to what we did in Miami. A little bit more of almost a resort feel in an urban hotel.
Right. Wow, that's a beautiful, beautiful property, especially with that balcony area. I guess that's one of the premier suites that are up there.
Yeah, we have quite a few balconies here. Our chef partner here is John Fraser, who's also Michelin star. He actually was one of the first to win a Michelin star for a vegetarian restaurant.
Wow.
But we're not doing vegetarian there, but he's very, highlights plant-based and did a pretty diverse menu there in a restaurant called Ardor. Then we have a great nightclub there called Sunset that was, on quite a tear before we shut it down. So,
and it will again. Absolutely
so.
will again. Anthony?
No, I was just going to say, I was wondering on that deck if our podcast equipment will fit there when you invite us to.
Oh, it will. Oh, it will.
Yeah.
As soon as you said the reopening date, please let us come out there.
How are you? All right,
it's open right now.
Oh, it is? Oh, let's go.
Yeah.
I'm hitting the airport right this second. You're
in charge of this brand. There's so many things going on in the brand, and there's so many things going on in the world right now with this pandemic. Like, you ever catch yourself like you're dealing with one hotel that everything's closed and the occupancy is 2%, and all of a sudden you're on the phone call with a guy who can't keep up with the business? Like how do you wrap your mind around, all these different hotels in all these different countries and towns and how they're all experiencing it so differently?
Yeah, a couple things. We put a big focus on the opening process, right? So when we open a hotel, we still do it the old-fashioned way where, we joke that we close the New York office and we all leave and we move into the hotel for the last 2 weeks. I have a team of 16 people that a lot of them, Josh Fleur, Ivan Poljak, some of those guys have been with us on this since the beginning of the brand, and really talented, very passionate about the brand. We have a great group of GMs. Many of them have been with us for years and years as well. So it's, we've got a good foundation, I think, to weather something like this. And, even when we opened Times Square, we all live in the area, but we all checked out, left our homes, checked into the hotel to be there, morning, noon, and night to get them off the ground well. So I think we have a good foundation.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but when you guys started opening in China, that you guys went, and some of the executives, and I think Arnie moved to China for a while. Am I remembering that incorrectly?
I don't know. That was right about the time I came back. I went to run Morgan's for a little while, came back and opened Sonia in 2016.
I do know before Starwood was sold to Marriott, every summer they would go to a different country and embed themselves there for a month.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. That's
we spent a lot of time there. We spent several long trips there and spent the last 3 weeks getting it open. That was unique because it's the southernmost part of China on the South China Sea. It was 97% Chinese business. Never heard of Ian Schrager. Never heard of Studio 54.
Of course,
50% wholesale business, and 55-acre lot there with 4 restaurants. And we're like, okay, how's this going to work? And it was the rate leader in that market. It's from 6 months after we opened it. I think currently, if you look on TripAdvisor, it's the number 2 hotel on TripAdvisor out of 1,400 hotels in Sonia.
I think what you said before is so true, is when Ian said about a brand has to have a soul, has to have an identity. And it doesn't matter if Ian goes there or not, because Ian is not, it doesn't matter. Nobody cares about Ian there. It matters of what he brings. And when you understand a brand so well, the person, and that's why you don't put your name all over it, because your name doesn't mean anything. The brand has got to stand by itself.
Right. Yeah. You do a great product, people are going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Dan, anything else that you want to share with us about EDITION? Anything else that's going on in your world?
No, I just appreciate you guys having me on. Anthony, a big fan of your show. And,
thank you.
My mother, my 83-year-old mother's watching. She's excited that I'm on with you today.
Well, tell your mother. I get this question all the time. I'm going to talk about it a lot now because our show, we have 4 shows. We have Hotel Impossible, Extreme Hotels, 5-Star Secrets, and Hotel Showdown. And no one could find them because they were on Amazon. They were all over the place. So now Discovery Plus came out, because Discovery now owns Travel Channel. Discovery Plus came out, and now you can go to Discovery Plus and watch all of our shows, all of our seasons, all in one place. So it's finally, like, I feel great about it, because people ask me all the time, where do I find the show? And I'm like, when you find it, let me know. But now it's on Discovery Plus, so you can find it there.
Well, I know you talk about retirement. If any of my hotels are on the other end of Hotel Impossible, I'll know it's time to retire then.
Well, our 5-Star Secret show, which you never know if it'll come back, that's the show I'll call you up and say, hey, we want to get on your show.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe Anthony should do a show. I didn't know this hotel was possible, and then we could feature you on there.
Well, thank you. And tell your mother I said thank you for watching.
No, thank you.
Dan, any shameless plug you'd like to give?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity to be on, and appreciate all the hard work my team's doing, my GMs, my team in New York, and we have a lot more great products coming out for you to experience.
Hey Dan, I set you up and you failed. I said something about your mom, and then he said, "Is there any great plugs you want to give? Any great things you want to say?" And that's when you say, "I have a great mother." You lost it, man. You lost it.
I can still get it. We're still not out of time yet. She actually,
for the record,
her health isn't
I
so
think
good
Dan's
now.
mom is amazing. Just
I can say hi to mom.
Yeah. Dan, thank you so much for being here. We hope to have you again real soon, and we hope to be able to broadcast live from one of your amazing hotels someday soon.
Oh, that'd be great.
Great, thank you.
For West Hollywood.
Yeah, and before we let you go, early on, somebody says that we should probably get me to a property to try to get some real operational experience. Maybe we could do something where you could make me work in the hotel a couple of days, and then I could report about how difficult it actually is.
You should come do an opening with us, and Anthony should do a show on the process of opening a hotel. It'd be a good topic.
You know what? I would like to bring Glenn to an opening. Not an opening day, a week before opening.
Oh, absolutely.
Where everybody walks in, and this is and Dan gets this better than anybody. Everybody walks in that's not a hotel person and go, this is never going to open in a week. And you're sitting there having a drink going, what? I think we're going to open tomorrow. We're good. We're fine. It's like you have no furniture, you have no carpet, you have no paint. We're good. We're fine.
Right.
It opens in a week.
Staff's not ready yet. Every time I can set my watch 3 days before opening, my staff's going to come running to me saying, we're never going to make it. We're never going to get it open. And
oh, yeah. I saw that. I was at the opening of Aria in Las Vegas, and I had access a couple of days beforehand. I'm like, never, never, never. And I'm like, this place is opening in 2 hours. It's never going to come together. And yet, as the doors are opening, the last pieces slide into place and everything is completely done.
And you know why? And you know why, Glenn? Because we know how to run an OS&E list. That's why.
Dan, thank you again for being here. We really appreciate you.
Thank you both.
Take care. Wow, that was such a pleasant interview. I really loved learning about
I like him better than Mike Stengel. Sorry, Mike Stengel. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but honestly, it was really great to know Dan as a human being and as a professional, and to really hear what the Sprans Innards is all about.
And it's fascinating, you know. Again, if you're not listening to the show, you have somebody in your world that loves hospitality and not listening to the show. You're just I don't know what you're thinking, because like you just got an education. If you're paying attention, what was the education you got? The education was an Ian Schrager and a Marriott. Everybody knows the stories in the beginning. It was rough go. It was a rough go with Ian Schrager and Marriott in the beginning, but somehow they're living together. Somehow they're making each other better. And somehow a little town in China no one's ever heard about has got an Ian Schrager property that's run by Marriott. That right there is a lesson. Right there, that is a lesson. And so I just love these shows when we can unpack these little lessons.
Yeah, it was really fantastic. That's why we'd love for you to join us every single day, because you never know what you're going to learn. Heck, we don't even know what we're going to learn. That's why this format is so exciting. So I want to thank all of you for being here today. If you're missing any of our shows, be sure to check our catalog of shows. Every single episode we've done since this pandemic began at novacancynews.com, on YouTube, and of course the audio versions in our podcast feed, Checking In with Anthony and Glenn, and No Vacancy with Glenn Hausman podcast feed. So check those out. And Colleen, best wishes to you. Colleen has decided to go back ahead and continue with her chemotherapy. We wish you lots of love as you go through all of this. And like I told you yesterday, we're sending you lots of positive vibes, and we know you're going to get better real soon.
We love you.
All right, Anthony, let's wrap this thing up. Remember, everybody, lesson is more important than ever. You've got one life, so blaze on and
be kind to yourself.